Earth looked calm from orbit. A blue sphere wrapped in fragile light, silent and untouched. But Commander Elias Varn knew better. "Run the scan again," he said, his voice steady. A young officer hesitated. "Sir, we already—" Again. The command deck of the EDC Resolute hummed with restrained tension. Screens flickered. Data scrolled. No alarms blared, yet no one relaxed. "Gravitational distortion confirmed," the officer said after a moment. "Same coordinates. Same pattern." Elias leaned forward, eyes fixed on the projection. Empty space, at least to the naked eye. But the numbers told a different story. Something massive was out there. Not drifting. Not passing by. Waiting. "How many?" Elias asked. "We can't resolve individual signatures," another analyst replied. "But it's not one ship." A pause. "It's a formation." No one spoke after that. Elias straightened. "They're staging beyond our detection range." "Smart. They don't want to spook us before the decision." "Decision?" the young officer asked quietly. Elias didn't answer immediately. His gaze remained on the void. "They're not here to talk," he said at last. "They're here to act." Before anyone could respond, the central display flickered. A signal cut through every channel at once, clean, precise, impossible to block. The room fell silent. A voice followed. Not loud, not threatening, just absolute. "Civilization designated, humanity. You are summoned." Symbols unfolded across the screen, resolving into a language the system struggled to translate in real time. "Coordinates attached. Compliance required. Judgment pending." The message ended as abruptly as it began. No signature. No negotiation. Only certainty. Elias exhaled slowly. "So it begins." The journey to the Citadel took less time than it should have. That alone unsettled him. Humanity's fastest drives still bent against physics like stubborn tools. But the route provided in the summons, it folded space with unnatural precision. Clean. Efficient. Ancient. They were being guided. Escorted even. When the Citadel finally came into view, Elias understood the scale of what humanity had stepped into. It wasn't a station. It was a structure built around a dying star, vast rings layered upon rings, each segment glowing with its own ecosystem, its own purpose. Ships moved through it like dust through sunlight, thousands, maybe more. "Commander," the pilot whispered. "That's not a city." Elias nodded. "No. It's a verdict." Inside, the air felt wrong. Not hostile, just engineered for something that wasn't human. Figures moved along towering corridors. Some walked. Others floated, glided, or shifted in ways Elias couldn't track. Conversations happened in frequencies he couldn't hear, translated only when directed at him. He was not among equals here. He was being observed. Measured. Judged. The council chamber dwarfed everything that came before it. A vast circular expanse, tiered with platforms stretching upward into shadow. Each held a representative, some massive, some barely visible, all watching. At the center stood a single platform. His platform. Elias stepped onto it without hesitation. "Commander Elias Varn." A voice echoed, not from a single direction, but from everywhere at once. "You stand before the Galactic Council." The speaker revealed itself slowly. High Arbiter Zyrothan did not move like a creature bound by time. Its form shifted subtly, edges blurring, as though reality itself adjusted to accommodate it. "You represent a species newly entered into interstellar space," Zyrel continued. "Your actions have not gone unnoticed." Elias clasped his hands behind his back. "We didn't know we were being watched." "Ignorance," Zyrel replied, "does not negate consequence." A ripple passed through the chamber. Agreement, perhaps. "Humanity is charged with the following," Zyrel said. "Unauthorized faster-than-light development. Territorial violations. Aggressive engagements resulting in the destruction of protected outposts." Elias frowned. We defended ourselves. You acted without understanding, Cyril corrected. And without restraint. Elias held its gaze. We acted to survive. For the first time, the chamber seemed to pause. Survival, Cyril said slowly, is not a justification. It is a variable. Elias took a step forward. Then understand this variable. We found technology we didn't build. We used it because we had no choice. Out there, he gestured vaguely. Space isn't empty. It's dangerous. We adapted. You expanded, Cyril said. We learned, Elias countered. Silence stretched. Then, faintly, movement among the upper tiers. Signals passed between council members, too fast to follow, but not subtle enough to miss. Something was happening. Elias noticed. And then he saw it. A projection flickered briefly behind one of the delegates. A star map. Familiar coordinates. Earth. Surrounded. The image vanished almost instantly. But it was enough. Elias felt the weight settle in his chest, not fear, not panic. Clarity. This wasn't a trial. It was confirmation. They're already moving, he said quietly. Cyril did not respond. Elias let out a slow breath. You've made your decision. No, Cyril said. We are in the process of making it. Elias shook his head. No. You're deciding how to justify it. Another ripple. Sharper this time. Cyril's form stilled. Your species demonstrates a concerning tendency toward assumption. And yours, Elias said, voice firm, has a habit of acting before understanding. For a moment either spoke. Then Cyril said, You will present your defense. Elias looked around the chamber, at the watchers, the silent observers of countless civilizations. Then back at Cyril. I will, he said. A brief pause. But not for the reason you think. Somewhere beyond the citadel, unseen and closing fast, a fleet advanced toward Earth. Elias knew it. And now, so did they. The difference was simple. They thought the outcome was certain. Elias didn't. Not yet. The chambers shifted as proceedings began. Light dimmed along the outer tiers, focusing attention toward the center where Elias stood alone. The council did not need theatrics, yet everything about the space imposed weight. Every voice carried consequence. Proceed, Cyril then intoned. A figure from the upper ring descended, its form crystalline, refracting pale light in sharp angles. Its voice emerged layered, like multiple tones speaking in unison. Humanity's expansion trajectory displays no pattern of restraint, it said. Border incursions occurred within 3 separate regions governed by protected species. Elias listened, expression unreadable. We didn't know those borders existed, he replied. No signals. No warnings. Your ignorance is statistically improbable. Another delegate interjected, this one a vast, drifting mass surrounded by orbiting fragments. You possess scanning technology. Not like yours, Elias said. We're working with fragments. Guesswork. A pause followed. Not disbelief, evaluation. Cyril spoke again. Intent does not erase impact. 3 civilizations suffered losses due to your actions. Elias nodded once. And we lost ships too. You think we went looking for a fight? We stumbled into it. A murmur spread, subtle shifts of attention. Your species exhibits reactive aggression. The crystalline entity continued. Escalation over withdrawal. Elias allowed himself a faint smile. We call it not dying. The chamber held that line longer than expected. Cyril's form tightened slightly. This is not a matter of semantics. No, Elias agreed. It's a matter of perspective. He stepped forward, just enough to break the perfect stillness expected of him. You see expansion as intrusion. We see it as survival. You see conflict as instability. We see it as adaptation. And yet, Cyril replied, your adaptation creates disorder. Elias met its gaze. So does evolution. That landed. Not as defiance, but as something harder to dismiss. A faint pulse rippled through the chamber. Not audible, not visible, felt. Information passed between council members at a speed beyond human perception. Elias noticed the shift. He didn't know the details, but he recognized timing. Something had changed. Commander Varn, Cyril said, voice precise. Your species lacks predictive consistency. Your behavior resists modeling. This makes you problematic. Elias tilted his head slightly. Unpredictable. Yes. Dangerous, Elias added. Correct. He exhaled softly. Or useful. That drew attention. For millennia, Elias continued, you've built systems that don't change. Structures that don't fail. You've eliminated risk. Risk is inefficiency, a delegate replied. Risk is progress, Elias countered. Silence again. Not empty, processing. Another flicker of movement along the upper tiers. This time, Elias caught more than a glimpse. A tactical overlay. Faint. Brief. Vectors converging. Towards Sol. His jaw tightened. They weren't just moving. They were almost there. He needed time. Not persuasion. Not approval. Time. Let me ask you something, Elias said, shifting tone. How many of you have faced extinction? No one answered. That's not an accusation, he added. It's a difference, Cyril responded. Extinction events are variables we have learned to prevent. Elias nodded. Exactly. You prevent them. We survive them. A few delegates shifted, attention sharpening. You've engineered stability, Elias went on. We never had that luxury. Every mistake we made, we paid for. Every system we built, we expected it to break. And that, Cyril said, is precisely why you are unstable. Elias shook his head. No. It's why we're still here. Another pulse through the chamber. Stronger this time. Even Elias felt it. He didn't need confirmation anymore. The fleet had entered engagement range. He moved subtly, activating the narrowband transmitter embedded in his suit. It wasn't designed for long messages, just enough to send fragments. He typed without looking. Break formation. Decentralize command. Use debris. Stay unpredictable. He hesitated for half a second. Then added, make them guess. The signal slipped into the Council's background systems, masked as noise. Gone. Your silence suggests contemplation, Elias said, returning focus to the chamber. Your assumptions persist, Cyril replied. Not assumptions, Elias said quietly. Patterns. A new voice entered, low, deliberate. High Arbiter, it said. Incoming data from the observation network. The chamber stilled. Proceed, Cyril said. A projection unfolded above them. Sol system. Dozens of signatures. Then hundreds. A fleet. Ordered. Precise. Overwhelming. Elias didn't react outwardly. Inside, everything sharpened. Engagement imminent. The voice continued. Several delegates shifted, attention dividing between the trial and the unfolding conflict. Cyril remained focused on Elias. Your species now faces the consequences of its actions, it said. Elias held its gaze. So do you. A flicker, almost imperceptible. Explain, Cyril said. You're about to learn something, Elias replied. Something your models can't predict. The projection updated. Human ships moved to intercept. But not in formation. Not in any pattern the Council recognized. They scattered. Fragmented. What are they doing? One delegate asked. Elias allowed himself a small breath. Adapting. The first flashes of weapons fire lit the edge of the system. Clean. Precise. Calculated. Then chaos followed. Human vessels broke apart, regrouped, vanished into debris fields, reappeared from impossible angles. No symmetry. No consistency. Commander, Cyril said, voice tightening slightly. This is not a viable strategy. Elias watched the projection, eyes steady. It doesn't have to be, he said. Another explosion, brighter this time. An alien vessel faltered. Just slightly. But enough. Silence spread across the chamber. Not confusion. Something else. Uncertainty. Elias folded his hands behind his back again. They're not fighting to win, he said. Cyril didn't respond. Elias continued, voice calm. They're fighting to survive. The projection flared as the first wave of full engagement began. And for the first time since the trial started, the outcome no longer looked certain. The first collision of fleets did not resemble a battle. It looked like disorder. From the council chamber, the projection of Sol flickered with erratic motion. Human ships scattered across multiple vectors, some accelerating away, others diving directly toward the incoming armada. No symmetry. No cohesion. Disarray, one delegate observed. Elias didn't look away from the display. No, he said quietly. Choice. The alien fleet advanced in flawless formation, layered lines, each vessel synchronized, weapons charging in perfect sequence. Their precision was absolute. Their intent unmistakable. Then the first volley struck. A wave of energy cut through space, clean and devastating. Several human ships vanished instantly, erased before they could react. No return fire followed. Instead, the remaining vessels broke further apart. They're retreating, another voice noted. Elias shook his head. Watch. Near the outer debris field, remnants of long-dead rock and ice, small human signatures flickered, then disappeared entirely. Stealth? A delegate asked. Not exactly, Elias said. Moments later, the debris field detonated. A chain reaction rippled outward, controlled, deliberate. Shattered asteroids accelerated into the alien formation, turning fragments into high-velocity projectiles. Shields flared. Formation lines bent under the unexpected impact. Not broken, but disturbed. Environmental weaponization, Cyril said, tone measured. Elias allowed himself a slight nod. We use what we have. The projection zoomed in. Human vessels reappeared from within the expanding cloud, firing in short bursts before vanishing again behind drifting wreckage. Their movements lacked uniformity, yet every action carried intent. Why disengage after firing? A crystalline delegate asked. Because staying predictable gets you killed, Elias replied. At the center of the alien formation, a command vessel pulsed with coordinated signals, directing the fleet's response. Its structure remained untouched, shielded by layers of escorts. Human ships began converging toward it. Not in a line. Not even in waves. They approached from fragmented angles, some accelerating too fast, others slowing as if hesitating. It's inefficient, one observer said. It's bait, Elias corrected. A cluster of human ships surged forward, drawing concentrated fire. They didn't evade. They didn't retreat. They burned. Sacrificial units, a delegate noted. Elias's voice remained steady. Distractions. As the alien weapons locked onto those targets, something slipped through. A single human vessel, its signature masked by debris and fading emissions, cut through the gap left by diverted attention. It accelerated directly toward the command ship. Too small to matter. Too late to stop. Intercept, Cyril ordered. The command vessel responded instantly, redirecting defensive fire. But the human ship didn't fire. It didn't slow. It collided. The explosion was not large. But it was precise. The impact disrupted the command vessel's outer systems, fracturing its coordination field. Signals faltered. Formation coherence wavered. For the first time, the alien fleet hesitated. Silence settled over the chamber. Elias exhaled slowly. They don't need to destroy it, he said. Just interrupt it. The projection updated rapidly. Without centralized direction, segments of the alien formation began acting independently. Still effective. Still dangerous. But no longer flawless. Human ships shifted again. What had seemed like chaos began to reveal structure, not uniform, but responsive. Each vessel adjusted based on immediate conditions, not distant commands. Decentralized control, a delegate observed. Elias nodded. No single point of failure. A second wave of human attacks followed, faster, sharper. Ships darted through gaps created moments earlier, striking vulnerable sections before retreating into cover. Alien vessels fired back with overwhelming force, destroying targets with ease when they could lock on. But locking on had become harder. Patterns refused to form. Why do they not regroup? The crystalline entity asked. Because regrouping creates predictability, Elias said. Predictability allows coordination. Predictability allows targeting. That answer lingered. Another explosion flared, this time larger. One of the alien escort ships broke apart, its shields overwhelmed after repeated strikes from multiple angles. Not simultaneous. Sequential. Timed. They are learning during engagement, Cyril said. Elias finally looked away from the projection, meeting the Arbiter's shifting form. We always do. The battle stretched on. Losses mounted on both sides. Human ships continued to fall, often in deliberate moves that opened brief windows for others. No hesitation. No pause. Why do they persist? A delegate asked, voice quieter now. Elias returned his gaze to the projection. Because stopping isn't an option. At the edge of the system, the alien fleet began to pull back slightly, not retreating, but recalibrating. Their movements slowed, calculations adjusting to new variables. Uncertainty had entered their process. In the chamber, no one spoke for several seconds. The silence felt different now. Not dismissive. Not certain. Cyril's voice broke it. This engagement remains within acceptable parameters for victory. Elias gave a small nod. Of course. Then your demonstration changes nothing. Elias's expression didn't shift. It changes everything. The projection showed human ships holding their fractured lines, still moving, still adapting, still resisting. Outmatched. Outgunned. Unbroken. They cannot win, Cyril said. Elias clasped his hands behind his back. They don't have to. Another flicker crossed the chamber, subtle, but undeniable. Not confusion this time. Recognition. They are altering the engagement model, a delegate said slowly. Elias's voice was calm. They already have. Far beyond the chamber, the battle continued. Not as the council expected. Not as it had ever been before. And for the first time since the fleet entered Sol. No one could predict how it would end. The chamber no longer felt certain. The projection of Sol still burned above them, but its meaning had changed. What began as a demonstration of inevitability had become something else, an unfolding problem no one had fully accounted for. Human ships continued to move in fractured lines, weaving through debris and fading signals. Losses mounted. Wreckage spread. Yet the pattern remained elusive. They endured. Enough, Cyril then said. The single word cut through the chamber. The projection dimmed slightly, though it did not vanish. The battle remained visible, impossible to ignore. Proceed to final deliberation. A ripple passed through the assembled delegates. This time, it carried hesitation. A voice from the upper tier spoke, low and deliberate. The engagement has deviated from expected models. It remains within acceptable margins. Another countered. Margins based on flawed assumptions, the first replied. Elias stood still, listening. They weren't arguing about humanity anymore. They were arguing about uncertainty. Cyril's form shifted subtly, attention moving between the speakers. State your position, it commanded. The human species introduces instability, one delegate said. Their continued existence risks systemic disruption. And yet, another voice interjected. They demonstrate adaptive capability beyond standard projections. Adaptation is not inherently beneficial, the first replied. It is when stagnation becomes vulnerability. That word lingered. Stagnation. Elias glanced upward, watching the exchange unfold. No emotion in their voices, only calculation. But beneath it, something new had taken root. Doubt. Zyrel turned back toward him. Commander Varn, it said, you will deliver your final statement. Elias stepped forward. For a moment, he said nothing. The silence wasn't empty, it was deliberate. Then he spoke. You built a galaxy that works, he began. Everything in place. Everything predictable. Stable. No interruption came. You removed risk. You minimized failure. You created systems that don't break. He paused, letting the words settle. But systems that don't break, Elias continued, don't learn. A faint shift moved through the chamber. You see us as a threat because we don't fit your models, he said. Because we make decisions you can't anticipate. Zyrel remained still. That is correct. Elias nodded once. Then you're asking the wrong question. A brief silence. You're asking whether we're dangerous, he said. You should be asking whether you've become fragile. That struck deeper than anything before. Above them, the projection flared again. Another exchange in orbit, violent, close. A cluster of human ships collapsed under concentrated fire. One survived, slipping through the wreckage, striking a weakened target before vanishing again. No pause. No retreat. They continue despite unsustainable loss. A delegate observed. They continue because stopping means extinction, Elias said. That is inefficient. That is survival. Zyrel's form shifted, more noticeably now. You propose that your species offers value through unpredictability, it said. I'm not proposing anything, Elias replied. I'm showing you. He gestured toward the projection. You've spent centuries removing variables. We are one you can't remove without consequence. And what consequence is that? Zyrel asked. Elias met its gaze. You stop evolving. The chamber fell quiet. Not the controlled silence of earlier. Something heavier. Another voice rose, measured, thoughtful. If humanity is eliminated, their behavioral variance is lost. And preserved stability remains, another countered. For now, the first replied. Until an unknown factor emerges. Speculation. Pattern. Zyrel did not speak. For the first time since the trial began, it hesitated. The projection shifted again. The alien fleet had pulled back slightly, reorganizing. Human ships still moved, fewer now, but active. Persistent. Alive. High Arbiter, a delegate said. Recommendation, containment rather than eradication. Define containment, Zyrel said. Restricted expansion. Monitored development. Controlled interaction. Probationary status, another added. Elias didn't react outwardly. Inside, the tension held. Not relief. Not yet. Zyrel's form grew still. All arguments have been presented, it said. A pause followed. Then, judgment will be rendered. The chamber seemed to contract around those words. Every presence focused inward. Every variable weighed. Humanity, Zyrel began, is found to be in violation of established interstellar protocols. Elias didn't move. However, Zyrel continued, the species demonstrates adaptive capabilities not fully understood by this council. A shift. Subtle, but real. Immediate extermination is not warranted. The words settled slowly. Humanity is hereby designated a probationary civilization, Zyrel declared. Expansion beyond current territory is prohibited. Technological development will be monitored. Future judgment remains subject to review. The final line came without emphasis. Non-compliance will result in termination. Silence. Then the projection updated. The alien fleet began to withdraw. Not in disorder. Not in defeat. But in decision. Elias exhaled quietly. Not victory. Survival. He looked up at Cyril. You changed your mind. Cyril's form shifted once more. No, it said. We adjusted our model. Elias allowed a faint, tired smile. Same thing, he said. The chamber began to empty, delegates withdrawing one by one, their attention already shifting to other matters. Only Cyril remained. You have altered the Council's expectations, it said. Elias glanced once more at the fading projection of Earth. Good, he replied. Later, as he stood aboard the Resolute, watching Earth come back into view, the silence felt different. Not fragile. Earned. They judged us, Elias said softly to no one in particular. The planet turned beneath him, scarred but intact. He continued, voice steady. They measured us by their rules. A pause. Then, they forgot one thing. Elias turned from the viewport, heading back toward the command deck. We don't follow paths. The stars stretched endlessly beyond. We make them.